This is how to loom knit a donkey. This is going to be a mini donkey. You're going to need a 12 peg loom and some scrap yarn of black, white, and gray, 2 rhinestones, and some polyfil. And it really doesn't take much yarn at all, and you probably want to use a worsted yarn, and I'm using Red Heart yarn. And I went ahead and Drawstring Cast On flat 12 pegs and done 4 rows of knit. And then after I've done that, we're going to start on the first year. So what you want to do is you want to knit 4. Then using the next 2 pegs, you'll want to start your ears. So you want to knit 2, wrap the next peg as an increase, knit 2, wrap the next peg as an increase, then you're going to knit 3. But don't touch the original loop on that increased peg. Now you want to knit 4 for 4 rows, remembering not to touch the original loop on the increased pegs. So there's my first row, and here's my second row. And here is my third row. And my fourth row. You're just knitting regularly. Sorry, I'm going out of screen. At this point, you want to change to the black color so that you have the nice little black tip on the back side. Let's go ahead and change colors. And I'm going to hold off snipping my yarn until I'm done with the ear. Keep that in mind. Okay, so go ahead and knit 4 with the black. Then you want to knit 3. Then you'll want to knit 2 for 2 rows. So there's row 1 and then row 2. At this point, you'll want to change colors again back to your white. And we're fixing to do the front of the ear. So go ahead and knit 2, then knit 3, then knit 4 for 5 rows. If I'm going out of screen at this point, all I'm doing is a straight knit back and forth like I've been doing. Okay, you want to decrease on each side by 1. So you're basically removing that increase you did and getting back to the original 2 pegs. you're going to knit those, and then you're going to knit them 2 more times. So you got 2 more rows. So here's 1, and 2. Okay, you've basically just completed your first ear. And what you'll want to do is go back and snip all your ends and go back to your gray color. So I'm going to go back and snip my ends so that they're free to do my next ear. So we're going to repeat exactly what we just did in the next 2 pegs. Because we've completed 1/2 of the loom, we're going to do the exact same thing in reverse on the other half of the loom. Now, you can choose to do this next part if you want, but if you don't feel comfortable, you can skip the next part and sew everything up later. But there's your first ear, and what I'm going to do is put the original loops back on, and I follow the outer loops as my guide to where to find the original loops, which is always helpful. Okay, now I'm going to change color back to my gray and then start working the other ear. Okay, now you're going to repeat what we just did with this ear in the next 2 pegs, and then you'll knit 4 back. So you're repeating exactly what you just did in reverse for the first half. I'm going to kind of start this off to show you what we're doing because it might seem a little confusing. There's your increase on the one side, and here's your increase on the other side. And you're going to need to remember not to toss your original loops over on those increased pegs. So don't toss that loop over. And then knit 4 for 4 rows. And when you get to the one that has 2 loops on it, make sure not to touch those, or you'll connect the middle of your ear with the middle of your head, which you don't want to do that. But go ahead and pause the video to complete your other ear and finish off the row, and after that we'll do 4 more rows of knit, just straight knit, and this is what you should have. So 4 rows of straight knit after you complete your ear, and this is what you should have. Now we're going to do a decrease by 2 on each side, and I'm going to lift up 4 loops, and place that last loop on the next peg, and then place 2 on the next one, and then place a single one on the last one. And you should have 2 empty pegs, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So pick up 4 loops, place that last loop you pick up on the next peg, place 2 loops on the next peg, and 1 loop. That last peg. You've now just decreased by 4, and you're just going to do a straight knit across and tossing both loops over on those decreased pegs. And we've just started our snout area. Now get ready to change color to the white to finish up the nose area. And what you're going to do is you're going to knit 8 pegs for 2 rows. So here's row 1. And here's row 2. And then we're going to add our little snout, our little nostril area in. So go ahead and knit 2. Then you're going to knit 1 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to knit 2 again. 1, 2, and then knit 1 3 times. 2 and 3. And then you knit 2. Now you're going to knit 8 one more time, and then you're going to drawstring cast off. And this will be the head of your donkey. Go ahead and cut a long end and string a needle and drawstring cast off. Now if you want to make this donkey bigger, you can just E-wrap the whole pattern rather than knit, but I would suggest using a much thicker yarn, a super bulky yarn, or tripling up on your worsted yarn if that's what you're using. If you're going to do a bigger one, it will double its size to E-wrap rather than to knit. So if you want a little bigger, you can knit this. You can E-wrap this rather than knit it, as a suggestion. As you can see, there's your little nostrils. And what you want to do is you want to sew up your ears so that they're nice and clean, because they're big ears. And you'll want to sew up your snout up to the white part, and then you'll just want to close off that drawstring back there. And you'll have an opening underneath for stuffing your head and have the ability to sew it onto the body. And speaking of the body, that's what we're going to start on next. And you want to do a drawstring cast on circularly. You want to knit 3 rows, purl 1 row, and then knit 7 rows. Go ahead on my blog if you want to find that a little slower. It's written down. And after that, we're going to go ahead and get started on the angled area at the chest. So knit 2, wrap and turn the next peg, then you're going to knit 4. Then you're going to wrap and turn the next peg, then you're going to knit 3, and then you're going to wrap and turn the next peg, and then you're going to knit 2, wrap and turn the next peg, and knit 3. We're going to start adding back in those wrap and turns. Then you're going to knit 4. Then you're going to knit 5. Then you're going to knit 9, and the reason we're going to knit 9 is because we're fixing to start working flat. And while knitting 9, put you on the other side at the halfway point. And this is opening up the opposite side to really distinctively put in a lift in the neck so that it angles really nicely. So now you're going to start working flat, so you're going to go back the direction you came, and you're going to knit 12 pegs. Okay, and the reason why we did that is so that we have an easier time decreasing by 1 on each side. And there's our decrease by 1 on each side, creating an opening in the back part of the neck. So go ahead and knit all the way around. And I am going to decrease by 1 on each side again and knit 8. But if you want a little bit of a fatter neck, you can stop with just the 1 decrease and just knit 10 for 4 more rows, and you'll have the same thing, just a fatter neck. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease by 1 on each end again, and then I'm going to knit the row. And then you want to knit 8 pegs for 3 rows, and then just cast off whichever way you feel comfortable casting off. So go ahead and do that, and I will generally show you how to do that. But you'll definitely want to sew up the neck, leaving a hole at the top to connect the head and close back the body and stuff. For the legs, I'm using my cord loom, and it's pretty simple. I start off with a black. I do a drawstring cast on the 8 peg side of my cord loom, and I do 1 row of knit, 1 row of purl, 1 row of knit again. Then I switch to the gray yarn, and I do 8 pegs for 9 rows. So I knit 9 rows, and then I cast off. And it's a pretty straight tube. You just have a purl in there and changing colors. So you want to make 4 of those, and you want to stuff and close at the body. For the tail, you want to use the smaller end of your cord loom with 5 pegs. You can do this on the 12 peg loom. You just have to do it flat. So what I've done is I've drawstring cast on, and I've done 3 rows of purl, and then I change color into gray, and then I go in and I do anywhere from 7 to 5 rows, depending how long you want the tail, and then I cast off and close up the drawstring into the black. When doing the mane, you're going to do a full drawstring cast on flat on your 12 peg loom, and then you're going to knit a row. Then you want to knit, purl, all the way around, and then you're going to purl, knit all the way around because you're going to create a rib stitch. Then you'll cast off. And we're only doing 2 rows because we don't want the main area to be very long. So that's going to keep it nice and short. After you've done that, we'll start showing how to assemble the donkey. What you want to do is you want to sew the head on where you line the back end of the body with the back of the head. Then you find those 2 columns that weren't wrapped in turn, and you go to the base and you sew your front leg down, follow that line and sew the back leg in, and you repeat the same thing on the other side. If you have questions about this, I do this the same for the goat as to how I go about it. You'll naturally sew the tail on, and then you'll want to start sewing the mane on, starting between the ears and down the neck, as you can see there. And then you'll want to sew that down and then sew the tail on, then center back. And then at that point you'll be done with the assembly, and you'll need to add your eyes. Follow the outer edge of the ears down to the base of the snout and hot glue your eyes on, and you're done. That is your donkey.